This afternoon, we have actually two subjects that are being discussed. The first one's going to be on space utilization and today's status, tomorrow's challenges, being put on by three panelists from Advent. Marketing Manager Don Boesch will be speaking, along with Harry Dace and Cynthia Griffin. Cynthia is a media liaison for Advent Launching Services, and Harry Dace is the Vice President and Business Manager of Advent, and Don Boesch is the Marketing Manager. Following them, Buzz Aldrin will be talking about Star Boost. So I give you Don Boesch. Oh, Cynthia first. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Buzz Aldrin, second man on the moon. Made you look.
Change your life.
We're very sorry that Buzz is not here right now. We were very honored to follow him. I also have photos that I wanted to hand off to him because we talked with Buzz extensively in Germany 2 months ago when we were there for the first International Space Tourism Symposium. And so I hope he'll tell you about his book and all of that, which I've read. It's very good. But I'm Cynthia Griffin. I'm with Advent Launch Services, and that's that little rocket company in Houston, Texas. With me today is Harry Dace at the end, our Vice President and Business Manager, and Don Boesch, our Director of Marketing. Now, we are pleased to be here with fellow members of the National Space Society, the organization that is devoted to, as Charlie Walker reminded us this morning, to creating a spacefaring society. And Advent Launch Services and the Civilian Astronaut Corps, which we will talk about later, can make that happen. A spacefaring society. Now let's look at that word society. Society really covers all aspects of our culture, including, let's say, beauty pageants. Now, how many of you knew that the Mrs. Florida beauty pageant is taking place this weekend at this hotel? Did you know that? Yeah, well, all the guys have their hands up. Well, a couple of days ago, I found myself in the elevator with several of the contestants, and one of the ladies noticed my badge, and she said, "Oh, you're with that space conference." And I said, "That's right." And she said, "I bet that's a real educational experience." Now, I know she was talking about me going to all the conferences and learning about tethers and, and all that, which is true. And I've gone to many of the conferences, and certainly I'm learning. But what I told her was, it has been a real experience for me to try to educate our audience that we can put people into suborbital space, and that we can do it without NASA funding, government funding, or funding from corporate aerospace, and that we can do it safely, and that we can do it cheaply, and we can do it within 2 years. Now, you know what happened. The elevator went silent. As soon as the elevator stopped and those doors opened, those ladies were out of there so fast. One of them dropped her tiara. If you've been in space advocacy, this has happened to you, right? I didn't get a chance to tell them that one day pageants such as theirs will take place in orbiting hotels, and I didn't get a chance to tell them the advantages of what truly big hair you can get in microgravity. If you see Mrs. Okeechobee downstairs, would you let her know her tiara is at the front desk? But that's why we're here today. We're here to talk to you, the public, because you are our customer. Not packages, not payload, but people. We are here to put you in space. Now, we've already met many of you over the past 3 days. We've talked with a lot of you. We sincerely appreciate your warm reception that you've given to us, your enthusiasm to the Civilian Astronaut Corps, and your wholehearted support for our project. It's been a 3-day conference. Some of us have been here a little longer. We're wanting to make our presentation rather light and informal. There's been a lot of technical data dumping the past 3 days, so we're going to make it light. We'll start by showing you a news clip from CBS News, and then I will reintroduce Don, and he will tell you more about the Civilian Astronaut Corps. And Ozzy is here to run the tape.
This vacation season, you might be thinking about an exotic destination. How about space? While it may be far-flung, the idea is not so far-fetched. In fact, the technological push for a vacation in orbit is already full throttle up. If you've got the motivation and the money, you can even make your reservations this morning. Joining us to discuss the race to privatize space travel are John Mankins of NASA and Dr. Peter Diamandis of the X Prize. They're in a bureau in Washington. And at CBS affiliate KHOU-TV in Houston, Harry Dace and Jim Ackerman of Advent Launch Services. Let's start in Washington with Mr. Mankins there on the left of our screen. You're with NASA, but with a very special part of the space agency. What's that?
What I do at NASA headquarters is to pursue advanced concept studies, basically trying to design and to define, to invent new system concepts for the future of the space program 10 to 20 years from today.
Including the notion that I could fly in space, that anybody could fly, right?
Absolutely. That eventually the public will be able to travel in space just as astronauts do today.
And that's tourism? I mean, we're talking about maybe part of your vacation being going, up in space. What would NASA's role be anyway?
NASA's role in trying to make this happen is not one of the sort of major government procurement shop for traditional programs, but rather the role of enabler, the sort of traditional role that the government has played in aviation and other transportation innovations in the history of the country, in pursuing the technologies and perhaps some critical infrastructure to enable the private sector to move forward with the necessary investments and make public space travel a reality.
Yeah, and the fellow sitting next to you wants to kind of hurry that along if he can. Dr. Peter Diamandis, you're with the X Prize Foundation. You're offering money to somebody who can come up with a perfect solution to all this, right? How much money?
A great incentive. The X Prize is a $10 million competition for the first private team, no government involved in government dollars, that can build a spaceship that can carry you and me up in space. The ship has to carry 3 people, go to 100 kilometers altitude, come back, land safely, and then fly again in another 2 weeks.
Prove it can be reusable. Now, you mentioned no government money, but do they have to be Americans, or do you have competitors elsewhere?
Our goal is to get the best designs, the best ships from around the world. So we expect competitors from United States, Russia, Japan, India, around the world, as many countries as we can get.
Well, this is a foundation. You're offering $10 million. You don't have $10 million yet.
We're hoping one of your billion-dollar viewers out there wants to do that. But the St. Louis community has come up with over $1 million so far to support the foundation and keep us off.
St. Louis because of what? The connection with Charles Lindbergh?
Yeah. Yeah, few people know that Lindbergh actually crossed the Atlantic in 1927 to win a prize, a $25,000 prize. In fact, much of the $250 billion aviation industry we have today came as a result of prizes 70 years ago. And so we're trying to recreate that and use prizes to get the greedy financial entrepreneurs out there and get them to build vehicles to carry passengers up.
Well, that's it. They're greedy in Houston. Okay, let's bring in Harry and Jim there at our station KHOU. Now, they are actually X Prize contestants. You call your project the Advent Suborbital Space Ride. That's not a carnival ride. I mean, is it, Harry? What is that?
Well, it's a pretty nice ride. It's a fun ride. It complies with the X Prize parameters of flying 70 miles to end altitude and coming back down safely and repeating it within 2 weeks. And that's what the Advent ride is essentially.
Well, what have you actually built? I mean, nothing yet. Have you got a plan on it? What have you got?
Jim has been with NASA for 35 years, and he's built many rockets, and he flies every time that NASA flies. NASA flies one of his patents.
Okay, but for this suborbital space ride, if you want people to now put down some money, join a club kind of, describe what this spacecraft would be, what the shape, how does it work?
It's 68 feet long, and carries 6 passengers and 1 pilot, and it's a six-passenger rocket with 1 pilot. It's here behind us here over my left shoulder.
And if I can ask Jim, what would the ride itself be like? What would you see? What would you feel?
Well, it takes off out of the ocean and accelerates to about 3,000 miles an hour in about 2 minutes vertical.
So that's how many G's of force and how heavy would we feel?
Well, actually, the acceleration peaks out
at the end of the propulsion part of the ride, right at the end of the 2-minute burn of the rockets, a little over 2 Gs, and then begins the 0 G coast.
Okay, so you feel twice your weight, then you feel weightless. And so that's really what people are going to pay for, right? They want to feel this weightless experience, right?
Well, going vertical at 2 Gs is pretty good thrill too. Yeah, 0 G is an exciting piece. Make a rapid transition there from 2 Gs to 0. And they'll float in the cabin then for about 2 more minutes until they get to the top of the projection.
Well, I hope they use their seatbelts. But Harry, let me ask you this. What's your biggest problem, the engineering or getting the money?
Oh, the money is the problem. Engineering's done. Engineering's done. We're ready to go.
Yeah, see how casual they are. Well, back to Washington, really. John Mankins of NASA. What are we missing here? There are dangers. Well, who's going to control this? There's such liability problems. I mean, even going to space usually makes you feel sick, doesn't it?
Certainly, there are a number of issues with long duration spaceflight, longer than a few moments of weightlessness. Something like half of the people who go to space, trained astronauts, end up suffering from space sickness. Certainly, that's not a pleasure for anybody. To make a public space travel business viable, there has to be ways to beat that. The Dramamine for space, per se. There are lots of other barriers, of course, other than the health factors, the technological and financial. I think the challenge is to make long-duration public space travel viable, as well as getting the ball rolling with short-duration flights.
And the ball rolling would be these short rides. Well, thanks very much. And folks who are interested in learning more about Jim and Harry's venture can hook up with Advent Launch Services on the World Wide Web. The address is www.advent-launch.com. And the X Prize Foundation has a site. You can check it out, which is www.xprize.org. Thanks to Advent Launch Services' Jim Ackerman and Harry Dace in Houston, and to NASA's John Mankins and X Prize's Peter Diamandis in Washington. Good night.
On the
Thanks, Mike. Well, thank you. It is with great pleasure that we are kicking off our Civilian Astronaut Corps, the national campaign for the CAC at this conference. And hopefully you've seen the full page ad that we have in your issue of Ad Astra magazine, or perhaps you picked up one of the flyers. If you have not received one of these, please see one of us after this presentation. We'll make sure that you get one of these. I'd like to reintroduce again Don Boesch of Marketing, who will tell you about Civilian Astronaut Corps.
Well, thank you, Cynthia. Thank you all for coming today. We certainly appreciate it. Let's see if we can get a slide to pop up here. Punch the top button. Whoa! Hello, come back. Yeah, there we are. We think that before the turn of the century, which in many people's minds is January 1st, 2000, that we will have taken 2,000 everyday folks like you to space and back. And we think that these 2,000 people will be most happy that they went along. You can come along. All you have to do is be a member of the Civilian Astronauts Corps. Now, the CAC, as we call it, has a unique new logo. Tried to make it look as good as a car. I don't know that it is. But we believe that we've got something that's going to be a very popular thing in the next 25 to 30 years, starting soon. It's a Texas corporation. We're based in Houston, the home of the NASA astronauts. This organization was organized by a group of former NASA engineers and their friends. And we have a contract with these NASA engineers to buy a new ship, which they have designed, which we will use to take people for voyages into space. We're going to buy this new ship, extensively tested, and we plan to be making daily voyages into space and back by 1999. We believe that we can make 2 to 4 trips per day, and at 6 passengers a trip, that means as many as 24 people could make a trip in a day's time. You have to be a qualified member, and there's more details to being qualified, but basically if you're in good health we think that you will be able to qualify. If you're old enough to ride, I don't think we can take 10-year-olds, but if you're old enough to go and you're in good health, age is no limit. To get some comparison, let's talk about the difference between the space shuttle and the CAC ship which has been designed. The space shuttle's engines have 70,000 moving parts, so we're told by the NASA engineers, with over 5,000 sub-assemblies from over 3,000 different high-tech manufacturers. All of these parts have to be perfectly matched, and they must operate at 98% efficiency for everything to work well. And then it's a one-time single use. It goes up and everything except the space shuttle falls in the ocean. The CAC-1, this is our design. This is a picture of what it will look like. It's a delta-winged flying thermostat, for lack of a better description. I'll tell you more what I mean by that in a minute. It's been designed by a group of NASA engineers on their own time. It's a truly unique departure from the other things. We call it the CAC-1. It's 1 because we envision 10 to 15 different locations throughout the planet that will be taking people for rides by 2005. The CAC's engines basically only have 2 moving parts. It's a pressure-fed engine, and the 2 moving parts are the 2 valves that open and run the pressurized fuel past the igniters and make the ship move. It's a result of 35 years of proven, accepted rocket technology in its most simplistic form. We use a totally reusable engine. That's what's been designed. It's a single stage with a pressure-fed engine, and the 2 fuels that are used are liquid natural gas and liquid oxygen. Now, many city buses from wherever you live run on liquid natural gas. It's used safely all the time. Most hospital rooms have a tank of liquid oxygen. These are 2 fuels that are abundantly available, relatively inexpensive, and will work very well for the purpose that we're using them here. Basically, the engines are simpler than the simplest airplane, and if they're simpler, they must be more reliable. And that designs by these engineers are sure that these can be safely and effectively used many times over and over. The CAC-1's new design is a rugged outer shell of titanium. As you know, titanium is used with everything from eyeglass frames to nuclear submarines. It's very strong, very durable, but very lightweight. And research discovered it's the 9th most abundant element in the chemical element thing. There's more titanium available on the Earth than nitrogen, but you can't round it up really. That's why it's expensive. We have a pressurized flight crew cabin just like a commercial airliner. Pressurized spacesuits will not be necessary. In this cabin will be a specialized seat, custom designed and adjusted for each passenger to their height and weight and body contours, so that it will be very comfortable to take the ride. The ship lands and launches from the water, any body of water, a lake, ocean. It just needs to be at least 10 feet deeper than the ship is long, and this ship is designed at 68 feet. It can rapidly be refueled for continuous use. That's why we think we can take as many as 4 trips per day to take people on these voyages. Simplicity always equals reliability. This is the engineer's #1 goal, is simplicity for reliability, because reliability always means safety of operation. Come with us on a voyage. Let us show you a little simulated voyage of what we think will be a CAC ride. This is very similar to Alan Shepard's original flight. Passengers will come to Houston, take a ride to Galveston, Texas, which is 50 miles south of Houston, catch a speedboat at the CAC launch facilities, and go out 30 miles to international waters, where they will find the rocket engines floating in the water. You don't see the majority of the ship. It's below the water level, of course. It's fueled and ready for application of the passenger cabin. Passenger cabin is on an attending surface vessel. Passengers go in, sit down, get strapped in their seats. The whole passenger cabin will be lifted up and attached to the top of the rocket by a crane using the same safety techniques that are used for elevators and so forth. It's all been very carefully designed and figured out. Once the ship is in position, if I read my notes, I won't forget anything. Let's see, there are plenty of windows, as you can see, so that everybody can see out. The cabin is loaded and the thing is ready for launch. At the ignition for liftoff, the pressure-fed engines light in the water, just like a marine cutting torch. Thrust builds and the ship lifts out of the water at full thrust with acceleration up to 3 Gs in 2 minutes. As it lifts out of the water, it will be reaching a miles per hour peak of 2,500 miles in about 3 minutes. At 40 miles up, the engines are shut down, and at that point, zero gravity, weightlessness begins. The ship coasts for 2 more minutes to a peak of 70 miles, where it levels off at the top. At this point, the curve of the planet will be fully visible, and you'll be able to see approximately 400 miles in all directions, which is, if you're off the coast of Texas near Galveston, from the Rocky Mountains in West Texas to Mobile Bay, and from as far north as Oklahoma City and Little Rock, south to the edge of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. It's going to be, as somebody says, one hell of a view. Weightlessness continues up there. You turn over and the ship is guided down, and we begin continued weightlessness. It continues for 2 more minutes. That makes a total of about 6 minutes of weightlessness from coast point up to the apogee and back over, which will give everybody an opportunity to loosen their seat belts, not get up and walk around and wave and carry on, but to feel the weightlessness of the whole thing and still simply cinch back down and be in place for the return to Earth. Once we turn over and begin the descent to the Earth, you will be going at up to a speed of 3,000 to 3,500 miles per hour, and once the weightlessness continues, once you begin to hit the atmosphere. The CAC is very lightweight considering the area of shadow cast by the gliding vehicle. The space shuttle comes across the atmosphere at an angle. It builds up tremendous heat because it's flat and it produces a tremendous heat. It needs shields and so forth, like the tiles and so on. We're coming straight through the atmosphere and pointed, and literally you get an offside flow on either side of the ship that will dissipate the heat that's being built up. The passenger cabin on the inside is like the glass insert in a thermos bottle. The outside may be warm, but the inside is still plenty cool. You have no sense of extra heat being built up in this sort of thing. You will be going down to the point that you will feel gravity at 5 times normal, or 5 Gs. At about 30,000 feet, which is the normal capacity flying level of many airliners, the ship will roll out and begin a circular motion which will slowly bring it down to the level of the ocean, where it's about 100 feet above the ocean. By the time it gets down there, it takes about 10 minutes. By the time you're down floating just above the ocean, you will be going about 100 miles an hour, no more than a simple little seaplane like you see landing fishermen on lakes in Alaska. The ship will land on the water, pop, 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 just like any seaplane. There is an abundance of empty space between the outer titanium shell and the inner passenger cabin and fuel tanks. There's no way it's going to sink. There's plenty of buoyancy. It will sit right there and float on the water until an attending vessel comes, attaches to the front, tows it right back over to the launch site. And you're going up and coming, you're going to have plenty of room to circle and come right back down to where you launched. Your surface vessels will still be right there, Go right back over, hook up the crane, attach the passenger cabin, and the passengers get out, get on the speedboat, and head back to Galveston. Back at Galveston, they're going to receive something which very few people in this world are going to have. That's your civilian astronauts' flight wings. They're going to be, we think, a very prized thing, and it's something that a lot of people will want to do. We're convinced that flight into space and back on the CAC-1 is going to be the ultimate excitement for people for this century. It's going to, the ultimate excitement that average, everyday folks can go take a ride like Alan Shepard within this century. Flight crew memberships will be $3,500. Now, there's a lot of folks that say that flights should cost $40,000, $50,000, and much higher figures. We are confident that we can take people on these rides in this ship within 2 years for $3,500. Initially, we're only going to have 2,000 people qualify as flight crew members. 2,000 times $3,500 is $7 million, which will give us what we need to purchase this ship, test it, et cetera, et cetera. Each will fly to space and back on the CAC-1. If you decide, oh, I've gotten too old or I've gotten infirm and I can't go, you'll be able to sell your membership as a flight crew member to anyone else that wants it. And believe me, after the first dozen have gone, they'll be standing in line to buy your ticket. Each flight crew member will not only get a ride, but we intend to take the CAC, turn it into an international corporation, and operate rides 10 to 20 throughout the planet. One in Long Island Sound for everybody up in the New England, New York City area. One on the West Coast between Los Angeles and Catalina Island for people on the West Coast. One in the English Channel for the British, the French. One in, or two perhaps, in the Mediterranean. One in Tokyo, one in Honolulu, one in Sydney, one in Buenos Aires. But you will have, as a flight crew member, the first option on the public stock that will be offered for the International Corporation in the future. Come with us. You don't have to go by yourself. Go get 5 of your best friends so that you can all experience this together. You can have 5 men, or 6 men, 6 women, 3 couples, we don't care. Bring your friends, line them up, come along. You will get, at the time you receive your wings, a videotape of the cabin during the flight, of the takeoff and landing, so that you'll have something to tell your grandchildren about. There's going to be a very, very short list of names of human beings that have been to space and back in the 20th century. If you'd like to be one of them, come with us, join this organization, qualify as a flight crew member, and we'll take you along. We think that you should get your membership today. If you have not seen one of our little folders, which has a membership application in it for a reserve membership. Reserve members will receive all the details about flight membership, plus reserve membership pins, cards, et cetera, et cetera. And it will be something that you will be happy to have. We think the CAC is going to be a success. We're going to promote it to everybody from school children to retired military groups or anybody that's interested in going to space. The comment was made earlier today that 40% of the American public, or 100 million people, want to go. We're just looking for 2,000 of them. But you better hurry and get your membership because they're going to fill up. This information here, if you don't, that basically, you send us a stamped self-addressed envelope, we're going to hand you back a folder. So you're in the right place to take your folder with you. We hope you'll come along and join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Dr. Aldrin is not yet here, so we will go ahead and open the session up to question and answers. Any questions? Yes, sir?
2 questions. Are you getting your certification for airworthiness from the FAA? And are you going to have a pilot along, or is it going to be an automated flight profile?
Would you care to answer?
It'll be piloted, and it'll be an experimental craft at first until we fly it often enough to get it man-rated.
Then I'd like to answer on the regulations part.
We have talked to some ex-astronauts who we hope will become the pilots for this vehicle. Either ex-astronauts or equally qualified former military flight personnel.
And regarding your question regarding regulations, the CAC-1 vehicle is technically a reusable launch vehicle, an RLV. Launch regulations fall under the Office of Commercial Spaceflight, under the FAA. However, at this time, there are no regulations regarding RLVs. The Department of Transportation is looking into that right now, mainly because RLVs, like our vehicle, will be taking not only passengers, but will be flying over populated areas in some instances. So to answer your question, regulations aren't there yet. The technology is moving faster than the regulatory office.
What's the droid mass, or what's the mass that as you're going over your apogee of the vehicle with passengers?
Do we know that? Well, you've heard the expression, 2 heads are better than 1. We have 3 heads up here, but we do not have Jim Ackerman. He's our rocket scientist. Jim has all those technical answers. He's not with us at this conference. His work at NASA prevents that. If you will address your question to our email, or if you want to see me afterwards, we will get an answer to technical questions that we're not able to answer.
The reason I ask is I saw in one of your listings that you're talking about using a cold gas system for your attitude control up there. Now, if you've got a tank that's larger than that thing, you're not going to have much attitude control out of cold gas.
Well, if you'll address that question to us on email, we'll get back to you with the technical answer if it doesn't go into proprietary.
Well, how much engineering has actually been done on everything?
It's completely engineered. It's completely engineered. I don't have all of the answers. I don't have all the technical answers to give you as what the exact mass is. It could go under a number of different configurations, whether we carry 6 people or 8 people or 10 people or 12 people. The mass could change, but the design won't. Does that do anything for you?
Well, what are the windows going to be made out of?
Black satin.
What are they going to heat up to on the way down?
Well, if you'll give us some specific questions, we'll answer them specifically. But here, it's not appropriate to answer this here.
Phil, I've got your business card. We met at the shuttle landing yesterday, and we will get back with you on that. I don't know if you may have looked at some of our literature that has to do with the orbital vehicle, and we're here today strictly talking about the suborbital vehicle. And I'll get back with you on that. Yes?
Does the passenger cabin have any form of safety devices in case the ship on the way down doesn't reduce to 100? I mean, are there any parachutes for emergency?
No, no parachutes. No parachutes.
There's no time to get out.
No parachutes.
Or no?
No parachutes, just like a jet airliner, there's no parachutes in there.
Plane flies like a Delta Wing airplane.
It has the same LOPD as a 747, which is about 12. Yes, sir.
How do you intend to do a maintenance of this ship?
Maintenance?
Yep.
Okay. What type of maintenance?
Well, any type of maintenance. Well, if you're in the middle of the ocean, you're going to have problems there. How do you intend to tow it in on a regular basis?
We'll have to tow it in to do it. You know, for a major maintenance, if we brought it, we towed it in. But it's a pretty simple machine. It doesn't have that many moving parts to it. Yes, sir.
Have venture capitalists expressed any interest in you? Have you ever seen anything?
No, that's, venture capitalists have expressed some interest in it, but they want more than we're willing to give up at this stage of the thing. So that's why we've come up with the CAC, Civilian Astronauts Corps, where we're interested in selling franchises for this. We're not interested in selling part of our holding company, but we'll sell franchises. So we're just now developing that sales pitch for selling franchises. It should be a very profitable thing. So they should be interested in it. Yes, sir.
What's the total estimated cost of development? Is it only $7 million? Or?
That's proprietary. Some of that's proprietary. but it's not expensive. In the world of high dollar rocket business, it's not expensive. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, all right, so do you presently have, or how soon do you plan to have like structural prototypes, things like vibe testing and structural testing on a rocket like this?
Well, when we commit to building it, that's when we'll do that. At this time, we can't. It is expensive enough that we can't put the money into it without having a business opportunity on the backside in order to recover that money. So it'll be when we get into manufacturing it, but it's all done with known techniques, and so there'll be no surprises with this. We anticipate 0 surprises. It's plain vanilla.
Do you have a sort of timeline for turning out prototype testing and then turning out some of your final products?
Yes. Yes.
And some of the aerodynamic testing has already been accomplished.
But I mean, when you finally build your rocket, you want to buy and test it.
Oh yeah, we'll want to do a couple of things like that.
Safety is a number one issue.
A 1-year turnaround to get a prototype out, or is that?
Well, we could be flying in 14 months, and when we commit to it, it'll be 14 months we'll be flying. We'll sell it by 1999. Yes, sir.
You worried about saltwater corrosion?
No. Nuclear submarines are made out of titanium. They sit underwater for years at a time. Yes, sir.
Yeah, two questions. One is, when it comes back into the atmosphere, it's just a glider, right? It doesn't
Yes, dead stick.
Okay. And then, how often are you planning to fly it? Each of them? It goes to another part of the world and the people come back by airplane and the ship is towed back, or does it fly back from there?
Ultimately, we would like to get into point-to-point service from Houston to Orlando, or Houston to Sydney, or Houston to Houston. Anywhere over water, we'd like to get point-to-point, which is one of the reasons we'd like to sell franchises around. If we had a franchise going in Miami, then there would be a place to refuel, so we could have Houston to Miami, and we could shoot one of these down to Miami in about 15 minutes and turn it around and shoot it back and carry passengers.
Basically, we're talking straight up, right back down to the same location at this point.
Yeah, but this ride is a little more of a technical problem because we're going straight up and coming straight back down. We'd prefer to go from Houston to Miami or Los Angeles or Sydney to come in on a more flat trajectory. Yes, sir.
So you consider reopening the seaplane terminal at LaGuardia Airport?
We work real much. We'd love to. Yes, sir.
Do you know how much roll-up space you need as far as length of distance of water to land?
Well, it depends upon sea conditions, but when you come down on the water, you stop pretty quick. So it's not much. We probably can operate within an area of a half a mile radius and be very safe.
Right now, we have to work on an ocean basis. You've got to go away from land until the government has seen this work over and over again and says, "Oh, wow, that works, that's fine." We think one of the greatest places in the world for a ride is going to be right off of the airport in Chicago in the middle of Lake Michigan. I mean, if people can stand on the shore and watch it go up and come down and stand in line to ride,
It's a controlled flight. I mean, it's coming in dead stick, but still it's a controlled flight. Gliders are dead stick on runways. The shuttle comes in dead stick and they land dead. So we should be able to do the same thing.
we can do this at considerably less expense because we don't have all the landing facilities the shuttle has and the takeoff facilities and all the wheels and all the parachutes and all the other pieces that have to be attached to it.
Lady here in the back, yes ma'am. Yes.
I may be wrong, but I thought I remembered reading that a crew member on the shuttle experiences a maximum of about 3 Gs, and you said 5 on the way down. How much of a problem is that going to be for some people? Can you compare it to anything else?
I'm a test subject for the Johnson Space Center in NASA, and I've flown the KC-135. I've experienced the parabola flight with weightlessness and pulled a little over 2G. I can tell you at 2G that's not an uncomfortable experience at all. It's like, if you've done any of the Six Flags rides or anything like that, you know, you don't have to be a NASA astronaut, you just have to be a normal, average, healthy person. It will be quite a sensation, quite a ride, but that's not really that big of a problem. As to motion sickness, there's medication and all that, but keep in mind on this suborbital flight we're talking about, you know, a short duration flight, basically an Alan Shepard, perfect flight, 15 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Will that coming down, will that be 5G negative, or will the seats rotate around as the more or less pushed against their seats?
Yeah, the seats are fully adjustable for comfort. He's talking, is that going to be weightlessness or even?
The seats swing during the course of the flight. The seats swing, so you're being pushed back coming down. Okay. You're on your back. Yes, sir.
Is the entire $3,500 cost payable up front for CAC membership, or is it like a deposit?
We'll take payments at no interest, and all the money goes into escrow until we get the money is all escrowed until we get the number that we need to initiate the construction of this. And then we're going to send out a letter and give all members a chance to back out. So if you've been making payments for 10 months and then you decide, well, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to do this, but before we use your money, we're going to send you a letter and say, you want to stay with us because we're getting ready to do it. So it'll all be escrowed, everything will be escrowed before we spend it out. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, do you have a vendor already designated for the build?
Admin Launch Services would be the general contractor. And there's a couple of other companies that will do, probably do the engine fab, but the engines are also designed by Admin Launch Services.
Do you have all the drawings available for a 14-month build cycle for this?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. We're about ready to go. If we had the money today, we'd start building it today.
Most of our contractors are conveniently located close to the Houston, Texas area.
You say you've been talking to ex-astronauts to the possibility of enlisting in as pilots. What has been their general reaction? Very favorable?
Yeah. The problem is they're employed by the U.S. government, NASA, so we're actually looking for a former astronaut.
It's been favorable, but we haven't come to terms yet with anyone that we can identify and say, close all of this.
We've actually received an inquiry from a French astronaut who is currently in the Mir training program. Now, he has not been up to the Russian space station yet, but he's made a serious inquiry to us. I mean, you know, these guys want to go into space.
He wants some extra credit.
You bet. He wants to go into space.
When we get resumes, people send us resumes, there's no doubt about that. Any other questions?
How many engines could you handle an engine out case?
Sure, it's got, the space ride's got 7 engines in it, 7 10,000-pound thrust engines. So if one of them goes out, it's not that big.
Yeah, and that's not to be confused with the Aerospy.
It's not an aerospace.
Okay, now if you did have an engine out on, let's say, the far left engine, would you have to show the far right in order to balance it?
The way it's configured is. Any other questions? Anybody interested in buying a ticket?
Who needs one of these? If you need one, hold up your hand.
I've been informed that Buzz is on his way in, so we'll just hold a second.
First thing we'll have to go get more.
Well, we thank you for your time and interest.
By the way, it's $3,500 each. Go out and find 5 friends, get 6 people together, it's $3,000 each. You can save $500. Or you can charge your friend $3,500 and go free.